All right, guys. Hello. If some of you may not know who I am or may not be aware of who I am, I'm Hannah Reynard. I am an ARBA judge. I got my judging license in 2011. I think that's what it was. And I have actually raised English spots since 2003 when I was 11. So it was actually my first breed. And then I just stuck with them. I've had other breeds in between, that type of thing. But spots was just always a breed that I loved, that I've had a passion for. So here we are. We have had, when I say we, previously it was me at my parents' home. Truthfully, my parents just kind of helped with like the cleaning and the driving and the show thing. Even when I was younger, I was always responsible for the rabbits and entering and tattoos and breeding and all of the above. Now I jump over. I am married now. Luckily, I found a husband who just kind of supported the rabbits, and here we are. He was not a rabbit person prior to, but he is now, I guess we can say. So I have had all 7 colors. Currently, the only color that we don't have is tort. I actually decided to get rid of gray and tort some years ago, and then the year before we got married, Shane came in and was like, grays. I really like grays. So the grays are his type of thing. So yeah, that's kind of my short little background, short little history on who I am, where this came from, how this all started, that type of thing. Okay. With that being said, we're going to get into the meat of this because truthfully, guys, I could talk to you for a couple of hours and not be able to get everything across to you. But that's okay. We're going to give you what I think you need to know. I'm going to kind of give it from a judging and a breeding standpoint because I understand there's going to be judges, there's going to be breeders, all of the above. So as a judge and as a breeder, I'm just going to kind of talk to you just in general of what we're looking for, what you're looking for in your breeding program, what you're looking for on the show table if you're a judge, and what is going to make or break it, so to speak, on the show table. As a judge, what you're looking for, what should stand out to you, and as a breeder, what you may need to improve on. Okay, so at first I thought I was gonna go through all the colors with you, and then I was like, I don't really think I need to do that. For the most part, our colors are pretty easy. Black is black, blue is blue, chocolate is chocolate. Your gold gets a little touchy. So I did pull out a couple different specimens for you as far as gold, so we can talk about that because I know that can be a little bit of a controversial thing. And then I didn't have any tort to show you. I'm sorry. I didn't have any tort. And then I can pull out a gray. I can pull out a gray to show you gray color. But I didn't think it was really worth spending a ton of time on color because they're just kind of basic colors. You want the chocolate and the blue to be dark. You don't want color to be faded. You want it to be uniform. You want it to be as dark as possible. And that's kind of it. Something that you will see, like you see in other self colors, is if somebody has their chocolate or their lilac, even their blue, sometimes black, not as much. If they have them outside, they're gonna sunburn, okay? So sometimes people look and be like, what is that? It's just some brownish tinging, lighter brown, bronzy color tinging on their ears, on their nose, because somebody likes to sit in the sun. So I always tell breeders and newbies when they get started, if you're gonna have chocolate, if you're gonna have lilac, if you're gonna have blue, make sure they are in the dark, so to speak, in a barn, covered, away from the sun 100% of the time, because even just a little bit a day will nail them. It will nail them. So that's really kind of truly all I have to say about color. You want it to be uniform. Of course, if on their butterfly, the top half of their ear, if there's any white spots, it's going to be a disqualification. Okay. You don't want any white spots in markings. I knew this was going to happen. That's why I brought water. I said I'm going to talk too much and then I'm going to start getting froggy, whatever. So let me go ahead and pull out the golds for you so we can look at that. And I am going to apologize. I am outside. So when I talked to David about this, I said, you know, I can make a slide, a presentation, but like, how much are we really going to learn from that, right? Like, we have our standard, we can read our standard. And if I made a presentation, that's really all it was going to be, right? And pictures only do so much. And the reality is, it's a running breed. It's a looking breed. It's not so much feeling. Yeah, you need to feel them for condition. Yeah, you need to check their fur. That's it. Don't touch them. Don't touch them any other time. You need to flip them, of course. But other than that, keep your hands off of them. That's the great thing about them. Just let them move. Let them be themselves. And I'm actually going to teach you a couple things from a judging standpoint about getting them to turn and about getting them to move. Because sometimes I watch judges and it makes me crazy. I'm like, don't do that. You just completely stopped them from running. Like, now they're not going to stop. So we are outside. We are in the natural atmosphere, which means I have two very needy Great Pyrenees. You can see one walking back here who are very into the rabbits all the time. I don't have a quiet barn. I don't have a quiet barn. The dogs are allowed in there. The chickens are allowed in there. Whatever, they're allowed in there because I don't want them to freak when we get to convention. I want them to be used to noise. I want them to be used to movement. And from just a rabbitry aspect, I think that's really important. You don't want your rabbits to freak out all the time. And that's really important with a running breed. They can't get scared on the table. If they're scared on the table, they're not going to move. Okay. So if we get a dog that decides to come visit them, because the dogs will put their feet right here and say hi to the bunnies. It's just kind of how it works. They're here to protect the rabbits, and that's what they do. That is 100% what they do. I literally have one sitting here looking at me right now. So if something goes awry or something else pops into the picture, it's okay. There's also some donkeys that may run around back there. So don't be alarmed if something pops in the background. It's just kind of our rabbitry, and it's how it works. Okay. So if you are a breeder, the first thing that is really important is you do need to have a running table. Okay. You've got to have a running table at home to let them practice, to evaluate your rabbits. You just kind of have to have a running table. You want it to have carpet on it. You don't want it to be slick. Okay, so if it's plywood, you need to put carpet on it. If it's plastic, they're going to slide around everywhere. Okay, and then they're not going to want to move. They're not going to want to run. They're going to naturally be a little bit afraid of it. Okay, so make sure we've got some carpet on there. This is just indoor, outdoor carpet. It truly kind of needs replaced. I like to replace it every couple years just because it gets hairy and stuff gets on it that you can't get out. Okay, so with that being said, our running table is actually pretty long. Okay, I'm going to turn this. It's actually pretty long, but we're going to try to keep it down to here because I didn't want to back all the way up because I'm afraid you guys aren't going to be able to see clearly or like enough if I back you all the way up. Okay, so let me grab golds. I'm going to grab, so I got some rabbits over here. I could have pulled out like 42 for you guys. But I pulled out some that I thought would be good specimens for you to show some different characteristics. So yeah, let me grab the golds real quick. Okay, so this is our first specimen, okay? Now, I'm going to hold him up here because I really want you guys to be able to see this, okay? He is too light. He's too light, okay? He's what we call frosted, okay? You can see he's got some more white. Oh, it's not going to focus. There we go. Okay, he's got more white in there, okay? And that's what we call frosted, and it happens. And just because a gold starts out as great color when they're a baby doesn't mean as they age, they're not going to get lighter, okay? That's a very common thing with golds is they get lighter as they get older. Not all of them. Some of them stay, but some of them will what we call frost out. Now, some are born this color. I'm going to be honest with you. And it is what it is. It's just kind of a genetic thing, okay? So this color, though, is too light, okay? You want that to be solid. You want that to be uniform. Now, I'm showing you his spine because it's the easiest place to see. But when I turn him sideways, you can see that when those markings lighten up, they're hard to see, which is why we want that more vibrant color because they are a marked breed. We need to be able to see that. Now, with that being said, and this is a common misconception that judges just kind of have to learn. Golds, their eye bands are a little bit funny, okay? Their eye circles are a little bit funny. They may appear that they are not complete, but they truly are there, okay? So it's just gonna kind of be like a grace thing, okay? Because if you really look, they are there. They just get that lighter ring on the inside, so sometimes it's going to appear, easy buddy, that they aren't all the way there, okay? Now, I will tell you guys, when he was younger, he was beautiful. He was a beautiful color. He was solid, bright, lustrous gold. And now he's older. He's, I don't know, probably 4 or 5. So he has lightened up some, and that happens. But I'm not going to take him out of my breeding program, so to speak, for that. But from a show standpoint, he's just not ideal anymore. Okay? He's just not ideal. Now, I want to give you guys a quick view. I'm going to sit him down, because you can see as they lighten up, they tend to get even lighter down towards the base, okay? That's just kind of how the frosting works. I'm gonna bring you guys forward and try to keep him down here. That's just kind of how the frosting works, and they're going, of course I got peed on, why not? But do you see how it kind of gets lighter down here at the base, okay? That is a very common thing for golds and frosted golds, okay? So that's why I wanted to put him down, so you can see like that hind quarter, how it's gonna get even lighter from his face. That's not what we want ideally, okay? All right, let me get him. All right, and let me grab you another one. Now, this doe is also an old brood doe, okay? She's an old brood doe, but she's a perfect example of they don't always lose their color, okay? They don't always lose their color. She has had beautiful color from when she was a baby, and it stayed, okay? It just kind of stayed. Do you see how, let me turn her around. She's got this crisp, clean, bright gold color, okay? It's solid throughout, so her markings are gonna stay solid, okay? I know, sweetie. She's like, Mom, what are you doing to me? But she's got this nice, clean, crisp gold color, okay? A really good place to evaluate their color is on their nose, guys. Now, with that being said, they can get too dark, okay? They can smut out, so they can get darker shading on their nose, on their ears, okay? It happens. It's not what we want, okay? And then we can get them to the point where they are chocolate tort, okay? And there's going to be black in there, and they're just really dark, okay? Truthfully, this is ideal gold color, okay? And that's also, I'm going to show you her spine, okay? But do you see, when you look at her face, it's nice and bright, and it carries through to her markings, which is really important, okay? She's not going to fade out. You're not going to have a hard time seeing her markings. However, I want to point this out to you. She's got really good gold color, okay? But do you see those eye bands, or those eye circles? I don't know why I keep calling them bands. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, do you see how the center is still a little bit white? So on this side, when it gets a little bit faded towards the back, it almost makes it look like they're not complete, right? But they are, and it's fine, okay? So when it comes to the eye circles on a gold, they're there, okay? Don't have grace, because it's not grace, it's just how they are. That's never going to be fixed, no matter what shade of gold there is. That's never going to be fixed, okay? All right, so that kind of touches on your gold color. Okay, so that's your color. That's all I really have to say about color. Fur. Fur is fly black, guys. It's nothing special, okay? It's a dense fly back coat. That's it. That's really, truly it. I really don't have, and spots usually have good coats. We usually typically don't have an issue with coats being thin. They just generally have really nice fur, and it kind of is what it is with that, okay? Nothing special with fur. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna pull out, let's talk about, I'm trying to think how I wanna do this. All right, so here's what I want to do. We're going to talk about the overall, I'm going to get this off of here before we get poop everywhere. You have spots, especially bucks. They are active. They are going to pee and they are going to poop everywhere. It is what it is, okay? It is what it is. Okay, let's talk about body type and markings, because I feel like this is really the biggest thing, okay? If they don't have body type, they're not going to show their markings well, okay? But at the same time, single body type is overall worth more than the markings separated, okay? But markings combined are still worth more than body type, okay? However, it's really, truly a balancing act. You've got to have that type to show those markings. You've got to show those markings to finish off that type. If you have a rabbit with amazing type with no markings, from a show standpoint, maybe you want to throw that in your breeding program to a heavier animal. That's fine. From a show standpoint, it's not going to cut it, okay? If you have an animal with amazing markings, but they don't have the body type, they're not going to show those markings like they need to, if that makes sense. So it really, truly is a balancing act. It really, truly is a balancing act. So let's go ahead. Let's start with, I'm going to go ahead and start with markings, okay? And then we're going to go into body type. I'm just kind of thinking of how I'm going to pull these animals up. Okay, so this guy back here, he's really, truly is a pretty nice balance of both. He's got type, he's got bone, he's got markings to fill him out, okay? So as far as the head goes, I truly sometimes get a little bit frustrated when I hear judges comment a ton on the head. Okay, it is what it is. A head is a head. If they have eye circles and they're complete, great. They don't have to have the feather. Most of them do have the feather, okay? It's actually stated in our standard it's ideal if they don't have the feather. Most of them do. It is what it is, okay? Their ears are colored. It is what it is. Do you want a pretty clean base? Yeah, but it's not going to be a checker base, guys. It's not a cap. Checkers have caps. Spots don't have caps, okay? You want that to end at the bottom of their ears. You don't want stray head spots. Done. That's really all there is to it, okay? We're not looking for a straight line across their forehead. We're not checkers. We don't call for a cap, okay? It's very different. It's truly very different. If it was easier, I would pull this out for you guys to show you guys a cap and show you what I'm talking about. I'm hoping that most of you know what I mean. But, well, let me go ahead and I'll get it back in. So I'm just going to turn this around real quick. This is a cap, okay? Oh, I don't know if I know how to turn it around. Shoot, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, there we go. Okay, this is a cap. It comes down on their forehead and it is clean cut all the way across there, okay? Spots don't have caps. They don't have caps. You want them, I'm gonna spin you around again. You want them, come here, buddy. He's like, no, I'm running. So you want them to be clean. You want it to stop at their base of the ears, but you're gonna have some of this white in there, and that's okay. This is fine, okay? You don't want white in the top half of the ear, and that's really it. Now, when we're coming to stray head spots, though, you don't want stray head spots, and that's very distracting. They can have one, they can't have two, okay? They can't have two. And the easiest way to do this, if you don't have a pencil, just take your finger and put it at the base of the ear and see what comes below it. If it comes below it, it's a head spot, okay? Like I said, you want their eye circles to be there. They're there. You want your butterfly to be there. It's there. Is it a little bit blunt on the nose fork? Okay. Maybe it's a perfect nose fork. Okay. Don't spend a huge amount of time on head markings. Are the cheek spots there? Do they look balanced with the body? Look at the DQs. As long as the DQs are good, you're fine. Now, if you have a rabbit, and this is rare, this is really, really rare, that has a big old honkin' eye circle and a big old honkin' cheek spot, and it's just really ugly, then you can make a comment on it. But truthfully, guys, don't spend a lot of time on head markings. You just want their heads to be clean. You want their bases to be clean. You want their eye circles to be cute and round around their eyes. You want their cheek spots to be little buttons on their cheeks, and it kind of is what it is, okay? And sometimes I hear a lot of judges just really get caught up on heads and, well, this one's losing because its nose fork is more blunt. No. No. Like, from a breeder standpoint, we are all back there going, oh my goodness, they don't know what they're doing, okay? As far as herringbone, it is a spine marking. However, checkers call for a clean spine marking. Spots call for a herringbone. It is supposed to be that jagged effect, okay? It's supposed to start smaller, get a little bit bigger, get a little bit smaller. Run from their neck to their tail. Have some grace on tail color. Have some grace on tail color, okay? It just has to be on there. It has to be on there, okay? And that's truthfully really it. But he's gonna give you, I'm gonna let him stand up. Maybe he's not going to do it again, because when they stand up like that, it shows you their spine really nice. Let me see if he's going to come back or if we have to go get him. No, he did it down here for you guys. Look, okay, when he stands up right there, you just got a really good shot of his herringbone. Did you see how it started smaller? Can you not knock my cup over, sir? It got smaller. It got a little bit wider towards the base, like towards the center, see, and then it gets smaller down towards the tail. That's the taper of the herringbone. And you guys saw how it's not smooth, okay? From a judging standpoint, you just want it to look balanced with the rabbit. You want it to be clean. You don't want any breaks in there, okay? They can't have 1 break. 2 breaks is a no-no with grace on the tail color, okay? Don't get caught up in the tail color either. That has been a debate over time. We've thought about rewriting the standard for it, and then we looked at it and we said it's fine, it's okay. So you just want the color to be on the tail, okay? Ideally, you want their herringbone to be free of stray spots, okay? You don't want a ton of markings up by their herringbone, okay? That spot's out of pattern. It's gonna take attention away, okay? And that's really it. There's no DQs or anything for it like there is in other breeds like checkers, but it's just not ideal. It's not ideal, okay? And then we get into the side markings, which is your biggest component, your biggest factor, okay? So it has always been said, a question mark on their side, and you're like, I don't get it, right? I don't get it. I don't understand the question mark. Through the years, I have stared at them enough that I can kind of find the question mark, okay? But it's kind of hard. It truly is hard to look at it. Here's the thing, guys. You want it to start at the nape of their neck, right off of that herringbone, okay? Let me pull you closer and get to this side so you can see him and not me. So you want it to start right off of that herringbone. You want it to start off of that shoulder, okay? Do you see how that first spot starts right up there? It's right up there, okay? If they don't have it, it's considered a little bit of a late start. Yeah, that's a little bit of a fault, okay? Not a disqualification. You're not looking for anything like that with it, okay? But it is a fault, okay? So you want it to come right off of that herringbone, right off of that shoulder, and you want it to swoop down. He's got a really, let me grab something to keep him up here. He's got a really nice, I like to call it the swoop. It's a pattern now. The legit word is pattern, okay? He's got a very nice pattern to him. Now watch him jump this on us. It's spots. It's spots. They're a running breed. He's got a really nice pattern to him. He's got a really nice swoop, so to speak, to him, okay? So it starts right up there at the shoulder, comes down, and you want it to be more full in the hip, okay? You want it to open up in that hip area. You want it to balance with their body shape. So it comes down. So it's gonna ideally come down. He's not gonna hold still long enough, of course. Come down, swoop down, and come back up. That's where the question mark kind of comes in. Let me turn you guys this way a little bit. There we go, because he's gonna hold still for a second that I put his friends there. But now he's gonna go down there. That's the fun part about these. Okay, so you see how it comes down and then it opens up, okay? You want their spots to be very distinct. You don't want a whole bunch clustered together, okay? You want them to be round. You want them to be distinct. And you want there to be a taper in the spots. It's called graduation, okay? Graduation. If you're not familiar with graduation, it is the fact that they are smaller at the shoulder and they get bigger as they go back, okay? And that is really, it all comes down to balance. It really, truly all comes down to balance. That is showing a balance in their markings. If you have one with huge spots everywhere, it's not going to look balanced. It's just not going to look balanced. Whereas if you have one that starts small and gets bigger, when the pattern gets bigger, when the hip gets bigger, it's going to just look nicer, okay? It's just going to look nicer. The same thing with your head markings though. You want them to be balanced with the body. Can you not knock that over? You want them to be balanced with the body, okay? If they're a more bold rabbit, they're gonna have thicker head markings. If they are a finer marked rabbit, they're not going to show as much boldness in their head markings. And it truly just comes down to all of that balance, okay? And it really is a balance when you're on the show table, and even when you're breeding, it is a balance between their markings and their body. You want them to have a nice body, but you also want them to be nicely marked, right? You want to have your cake and eat it too, and that's kind of what this comes down to. So you want them to be nicely marked, but you want them to have the body that they can show those markings off. And that's the biggest thing, is you want them to be showy. You want them to want to move. You want them to have some energy. Now, when I say that, there's a difference between energy and mean, okay? We don't want mean animals, okay? We don't want to be known for a breed that is going to come after you when you touch them. Nobody likes to handle those. Nobody likes to breed those, and nobody likes to judge those, okay? So there's a really big difference there between a rabbit that has some energy, likes to move, and a rabbit that wants to eat your hand off every time you touch them. So don't mistake that either from a breeding standpoint and from a breeder standpoint. Please don't mistake that. And truthfully, guys, spots are not a mean breed. We are not a mean breed. I can't tell you the last time that I got bit. They just don't bite. They're energetic. Yes. They like to move. Yes. They're truthfully not mean. So if we get a mean one, that's a very rare thing, and they don't stay. They don't stay. Oh, let's talk about leg markings. So leg markings, as you can see on the front leg, he doesn't have any spots, okay? On this one, he has 3 of them. Oh, can you guys see that view? Can you get that? He's showing it to you. So there's 2 and 1. Here's the thing. Leg spots can be there. They don't have to be there. There's no points for them. There's no points against them. It calls for them, and it's another one of those things. It kind of is what it is, okay? There's no points for them. There's no points against them. I once had a judge tell me, I know the standard says that they can have leg spots. I just don't like them. So I just can't get past that for picking best in show. What? Yes, I was told that one time. And from a breeding standpoint, that's very annoying. Our standard called that it is okay to have them. There's no points for them. There's no points against them. You don't get to change the standard when you're judging. And that's kind of is what that is. You don't want there to be a lot of dirtiness on their butt, okay? When they're running down the table, you don't want a whole bunch of extra spots down their legs, on the back of their legs, on their butts, all of that good stuff, okay? All right, I think that's enough of him. I wish we could get that side view. Okay, I want you to get that front view, okay? I want you to get that front view, because that's another thing I was going to talk about when we got to body type, but he was giving you a nice view there, so I wanted you guys to grab it, okay? You want their ankles to be strong. You want their ankles to be straight, okay? You want their bone to be medium. Medium bone, guys. Our standard calls for that. It doesn't say fine. Why? It doesn't say heavy. Why? It gets too heavy. We're not calling for a 15-pound checker giant, okay? They don't have to have that much bone to carry themselves. However, we don't want a fine animal, because they're not going to have enough bone to carry themselves. We want them to be mechanically sound, okay? We want them to have enough bone that they are moving well, that they're carrying their bodies well. We don't want these really narrow, really fine animals. That's not what we want, okay? You can get a spot that is way too fine, and when they stand up on that front end, you'll watch. Their chest is bowed and their legs are bowed. Everything is tucked in and their legs are a little bit bowed out because their body is so fine. The fineness of the bone goes with the fineness of the body. You start getting that really fine bone, you're going to narrow out that body, okay? Yes, it may make it stand up more, but that rabbit is not going to be structurally sound, okay? So you want it to have enough bone, medium bone, that it's carrying itself. We've got some taper in the body in the hindquarters, from the shoulder to the hindquarters, okay? You want them to have a nice, big, wide track. That's really important in a running breed. How they run and how they move down the table, you want their feet to be parallel. When you look at the back of that rabbit, you want their feet to be sitting underneath of their hips. We don't want them kicked out. We don't want their track to be so narrow that here's their track and this is their body, okay? You want their feet to be wide, their back feet to be wide and run down the table with their body. Their body should be over top and supported by those legs, okay? We don't want like a pedestal table, right? We want something to be very sturdy and up above. We don't want their feet to be here and their body to be overhanging. That's called a narrow track, and that's a no-no, okay? All right, let me grab you another one. I know, you were having fun. You were having tons of fun. And that was a blue, guys. In case anybody didn't know or needed some help there, that was a blue, okay? He's a pretty dark one. He's a pretty dark one. Okay. The next guy I'm going to bring out is more for markings, okay? He's more for markings. So I wanted to show you, everybody is molting. Not everybody, but. So I wanted to show you somebody that had a nice balance to him, okay, which was that blue. He's got nice markings. He's got a nice body, okay? And then I wanted to show you somebody that's got pretty nice markings, but maybe doesn't like to show himself as much, okay? Now, when he poses and when he stands up, he's got the type, but he's a little more lazy, right? So that blue was up here running, moving, having fun, and this guy's kind of like, here I am, I'm hanging out, no big deal, right? He's more interested in rubbing the table, which happens with bucks, and you kind of have to get their attention, okay? Now, here's what I was talking about earlier. When you want to get their attention, just kind of tap them, okay? Just tap them. Don't dig at them. Don't pry at them, okay? The more, when you go to turn them, the more you touch them and the more you handle them, the less you're going to encourage movement, okay? If I take my hand and I go like this, that's not going to get him to move. That just flattened him down to the table, and some rabbits are actually going to just stop, okay? So from a judging standpoint, if you are up on the table and you need to get that rabbit to turn around and you go like this, what did that, oh, he's got poop all over him. What did that do? Oh, you're done, buddy. What did that do? We just promoted him to flatten down, okay? Yuck, you need cleans now. Whereas if you just take it and hit his butt, okay, that's going to promote more. And that happens with bucks, guys. They get nasty poop. They do, okay? This guy has a little bit more of a more blunt butterfly, okay? Judging a class of animals, unless it got down to really, really, really tight, nitpicky stuff, it is what it is, okay? Take a point or two off. It's not going to make or break him, though, type of thing, unless you have two perfect animals, and that's the only thing that you can pick at, okay? But I wanted to show you guys his distinction of spots, and I wanted to show you his graduation. He's got really nice graduation. And this is a chocolate, in case you wanted to know. But see, he's a little more bolder marked animal, so his cheek spots are going to be a little bit bigger, and that's fine. It balances with him just so they don't touch his eye circles, okay? Life is good. All right, we're putting him back because he's nasty. But I just wanted to show you guys how he's not getting up and showing himself and moving as much as a more balanced animal did. So with that being said, you're not getting the full effect of his markings because he's not being showy, okay? So you're going to take some points off for body type there, okay? His bone is good. Oh, this is a tail I should show you. This is fine, okay? This is a fine tail, guys. Like, it is okay. There's color on it. It's fine, okay? So don't get real caught up on tail color. That was a big debate, probably about like a year or two ago now. Probably like a year or two. All right, let me clean this table real quick. So that's the other thing. If you are judging spots or breeding spots, they're gonna poop. They're active and they're gonna poop. So have a nice little something to clean your table off frequently. Now the bucks are the ones that tend to have the nasty poop, not the does. Not the does. Sometimes. All right, and that's why the carpet gets changed every couple years, right there. Okay. All right, let me show you. I'm going to show you a buck. Okay, the next two animals I'm going to pull out, they're actually both blacks. They're very nicely balanced animals, okay, but also two very different animals, okay. This guy is marked very nicely. He's got very nice graduation. He's got a couple spots that could be a little bit more defined, okay, but he's not going to get up and show himself as much as the doe, okay. He's got a nice herringbone. He's got a nice taper. His tail color is good, okay. His head markings are good. He's got a nice butterfly, nice rounded point up there. Cheek spots are good. Eye circles are good. They're balanced. They're in balance with him. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to show you guys while he's being lazy. So if we're looking for head spots, the easiest thing to do on the table is take your finger, turn it sideways, and put it there. Put it at the base of his ear, okay? Anything below that is considered a head spot is what it is, okay? That's a good ear base. That's a good ear base, okay? There's a little bit of white. It's perfectly fine, but it's clean, okay? All right. Oh yeah, you guys might have saw them. The donkeys might have walked past if you're wondering what's back there. And we just got peed on again. Everybody is feeling themselves today. Feeling themselves. It is a nice day out, but my goodness. Okay, I'm soaked. Like, look, I'm gonna show you guys. Soaked. I'm black though, so you might not be able to see. Gross. Okay. So he's just kind of, he's a very nicely marked animal, okay? He's got a nice pattern to him. He starts off at that shoulder and he comes down and widens out at that hip. That's your question mark pattern, okay? He could be a little bit more round in his spots, okay? Right here, he could be a little bit more round. He's a little bit more what we call barred, okay? You want them to be a little bit more distinct, a little bit more separated, but he's got nice graduation to him. And yes, they can have nice graduation and be barred or be congested, okay? The graduation is there. When you look at the spots, if they get bigger, that's nice graduation, okay? He's got the elbow spots. It is what it is. Those are something that you really, truly just don't kind of pay attention to unless you start getting a lot of markings down those legs that are distracting. Don't worry about it, okay? Like I said earlier, you want this all to be clean, okay? We want to try to stay away from stray spots up at that base, okay? You want to try to stay away, so that looks good, okay? And he's got good tail color. I'm trying to think of what I'm forgetting to tell you guys because I know I'm going to forget to tell you something. Okay, but these last two rabbits are rabbits that are really nicely marked. They just don't show themselves as well. So they're not showing that body type. Can we not pee again? They're not showing, and they do tend to pee more in the morning, by the way. It's cool. It's nice. It is what it is. He's got a nice herringbone to him. He's got a nice taper. Let me turn you in that herringbone. Okay. And look, now he's going to sit up and now he's going to pose. So he's got really nice type. We've got nice extension of that front limb. He's got nice bone to him. He shows good daylight. He comes down nicely and rounds out in that hind quarter. Okay. You don't want that hind quarter to be chopped. You don't want those pin bones to be showing. But if he's not willing to get up and show and move himself, even if his markings are really great, it's just kind of not there, okay? But I don't want you to bury an animal like this in a class or call an animal like this because the markings are there and overall the markings are worth more than type, okay? But when we're looking for the top class placers, when we're looking for what makes or breaks them, they can have beautiful markings. And if they're not showing it, they ruin themselves, okay? They just kind of ruin themselves. All right, let's get another one for you. All right, guys, the next rabbit I'm going to show you is a rabbit that she's a really, let me clean this real quick. She's a really great rabbit, which is kind of why I saved her for last for you, because I wanted to show you the nice balance of movement. Look, she's gonna take herself out of the cage for you. Okay, the nice balance of movement, the nice balance of markings. I'm gonna keep her in a smaller area so I don't have to turn that as much, so we can just kind of talk. Okay, so we've got that medium bone, okay? You can see her herringbone there. It balances with her side markings. It's got a nice herringbone pattern to it. It tapered. It was smaller up at the shoulder and got bigger and then got smaller again, okay? She's given you a good headshot there. We're just going to kind of work with her as she's moving, because that's what you're going to do when you're evaluating the animals. Keep your hands off of them. Step back. Give them space. The more space you give them, the better they're going to move, okay? That's the thing. When I look at rabbits at home, I put them on the table and step back, probably 4 or 5 feet, to be honest with you, okay? Spot does can have dewlaps. Oh, by the way, in case anybody didn't know, okay? So you want that nice straight ankle, okay? You don't want that ankle to bend when it's hitting the table. You want it to be nice and straight, okay? You want them to get up. You want them to show you that daylight. Daylight is that light, literally, the daylight that they're showing you underneath of their bellies, okay? You want it to start nice at that shoulder and round off into that hip. And you're going to see that when they sit up, okay? You're going to evaluate their type, and you're going to see their type when they sit up, okay? So she rounds off very nicely into that hind quarter. I wish when we're done, so to speak, I'm going to move the camera so I can show you guys a track, because it's kind of hard to see. I'm going to have to like lay you on the table so we can show you a track. But you see that front end, she's got some space between those front legs. You don't want them to be so tight that their chest is tight, okay? You want those legs to just rest underneath of that natural body, okay? Head markings are clean, guys. Head markings are clean. Eye circles are there. Cheek spots are there. Nothing's touching. There's no white in her butterfly. She's got a good nose fork on her. Her ear base is clean, okay? There's no white in that ear base. Okay, she's going to show you the question mark pattern, and she's going to show you graduation very well. Okay, she's also going to show you distinction very well. If I can get her to pause for a second, I'm going to show you, maybe up. I'm going to show you that question mark pattern, okay? Of course, I can't reach her over there. And you can't see her over there. Okay. She's like, I'm going to go where you don't want me to go, Mom. I know, sweetie. Okay. So she starts off right at the nape of that neck, okay? And then she swoops down into that pattern, widens out that pattern in her hip, okay? That's your question mark pattern that you're looking for, okay? There's not a lot of stray spots outside of that chain, okay? It really truly is a chain of spots. The chain should be continuous. You don't want gaps. You don't want breaks in there. And that's what's going to make or break it too. You know, if you have a rabbit that has beautiful type but is very lightly marked, it's not going to cut it, okay? If you have a rabbit that has great type but is really heavy or has a lot of spots out of that chain, it's going to ruin that pattern, okay? So it's not going to make it. Okay, if you have a rabbit that has a big old hunkin' stray head spot right in the middle of her forehead or right down by her nose, it's going to be very distracting, and that rabbit's not going to make it, okay? A double cheek spot, guys. So a spot and a spot, that's a DQ, okay? The cheek spot touching the eye circle, that's a DQ, okay? So what makes or breaks them is the willingness for them to show themselves and have that balance with the markings, okay? You want them to have that type, you want them to have that movement, but you also want them to have those markings to balance out, okay? You want markings to be clean, you want things to be finished, okay? Let me see if I can get her to sit. All right, let me take you guys out of the hopper. I'm gonna try to show you track. Give me a second, you might get some weird views for a second. Let me sit you down. because I wanted to give her the full run of the table to try to do this with you guys. Okay. So I'm going to turn her around. I might steal my husband for a second. Hey, Shane, can you come here for a second? Okay. Oh, look, now she's going to go. So I'm going to have her run towards us, and then I'm going to have her run away from us. So you guys can kind of see when they run towards us, you want those legs to just be under her. Okay. I'm going to get him to send her down here so we can hold. And truthfully, guys, the more movement that they have, the more room they have, the more width on a table they have, the better they're going to move. Can you just send her down this way? I want to look at her track, but she was getting too far away. Okay, so I'm going to send her away, and I want you to see, do you see how those hind feet were just directly underneath of her? When she runs towards us, the front feet are straight, and they're directly underneath of her body, okay? You want that track. See, it's nice and wide. She's got space between her feet. Her feet aren't hitting as she's running, and her feet are straight. Her hocks are straightly in line with her body, okay? On a running breed, that's really important. And the only way to really do that when you're judging or evaluating is to get at the end of the table and kind of lean down. That's truthfully the only way that you're going to be able to see that. Okay, I think that's it, David. You can put it back if you want to. I think that is it. Do we have questions? Oh, I did good. It's 9:47. I did good.
I love that. I love that doe. She's got amazing type. Just one question as she's like running there. In terms of length of overall body, how much, I mean, do you want them short, medium, long in terms of overall length?
Okay, so you truly want them medium, okay? They're not going to be as short as tans. Tans are shorter. Tans are more upright and short. You want them, and that kind of goes with that bone. You want their bone and their body to be medium, okay? You don't want them so long that their shoulder is starting to look long. And because when they start to get too long, they kind of start to get a little bit sloppy. Okay, so you really want them of medium body length. Your tans are going to be shorter. Your checkers and your Rylanders are going to be longer. And it truly does kind of go with body size a little bit, but we don't want them, like our standard calls, we don't want them to be short. We want them to be mediumed. And I truly think that that kind of goes with that bone. When you start getting those finer animals, they start getting shorter because their bone can't support that medium body length structure.
Okay. Another question we had was, from your judging experience, what has been your favorite moment, and like if you can remember that in the like a class, like, and why it was one of your favorites, or the breed as a whole that day?
Let me think for a minute. Let me think. I actually, this kind of is like a personality emotional thing and like a rabbit quality thing. I was actually judging a specialty show over in New Jersey, and it was actually the youth show. And this one in the youth convention last year kind of go hand in hand. I was judging youth convention last year, and I had 2 rabbits. Overall, the quality of the animals were amazing in youth. They really truly were awesome rabbits, and I know that our youth breeders work really hard, but I can specifically remember at convention sitting 2 rabbits side by side, and I had, as a breeder, as a judge, as somebody that has been around these rabbits for a really long time, I probably looked at these rabbits for 10 or 15 minutes, and neither one of them tired out, and they just kept going. And truthfully, from a breeder and judge standpoint, I hate to look at rabbits that long because they do tire out, and that's not fair to the animal, because then they're going to start showing bad. So that's the other thing too, guys. And I guess I didn't even think about that. When you're evaluating spots, give them time, but don't make them work so hard that they're going to start showing badly. Okay. If you have a rabbit out there for the 4th time and it is running for 10-15 minutes, like, it's going to tire out. Right. So give it a fair enough time that you are giving it a chance to get used to the table and get used to run. But don't make it run so much that you are going to tire it out. And That's the other thing too, is make sure you give them enough time to get used to the table, to get used to the environment before you're like, oh, this rabbit isn't moving. You know what I mean? It needs a good 4, 5, 6 times up and down that table at least before it's even going to get used to what is going on around it and comfortable with its environment. And that's just kind of how it is. But I was looking at these 2 rabbits in youth, and I really, like I told you guys, I started in youth. My first rabbit was a spot, and it's a challenging breed. It really is a challenging breed. It's a marked breed, guys. It's never going to be perfect. I don't care how good of a specimen you get. My best specimen of a spot was never perfect. It's a marked breed. There's going to be a spot off. There's going to be something off if you pick hard enough, okay? Be gracious with what we're dealing with, type of thing, okay? I'm not saying cut it slack and pick mediocre animals. That's not what I'm saying, but it's a marked breed, and this goes for any marked breed. This isn't a white New Zealand or a white Florida white where really you're just looking at fur and body, okay? We've got markings. We've got a lot to work on. We have a lot to be responsible for. So have a little bit of grace, and don't be so cutthroat with them, because if you want to cut, you can cut on anything. But that's with any breed, really. But I was looking at these rabbits, and they were running, and I knew I truly couldn't decide, and I had a really hard time, and I had to start getting really nitpicky, and that was truthfully the hardest time I have ever had judging rabbits, let alone judging my own breed. But it really just brought me back to, these kids have worked so hard, and the quality of these animals is so great. Were either one of them perfect? No, but they were balanced, and they showed themselves, and that is what really meant the most to me. So yeah, I can truthfully still picture myself standing behind that table, and that moment truthfully always just kind of stands out to me. They're really, really great rabbits. They really are a great breed. They really are.
Final question. As a fan of your guys' rabbitry, and the videos and such that you always are taking, on that show board that's behind you, I'm amazed how wide it actually is. Is that like 3 feet wide, or like 3 feet deep? And then it's like 20 feet wide or long. But my question is, why is it that having that much wider and or deeper table makes a difference on how they run? And is that something that would be more beneficial, having wider type of tables at shows?
And I mean, it truly is very beneficial. And I truly think it comes down to the rabbit feels comfortable, and the rabbit doesn't feel like it's going to fall. There's space on both sides. It can turn, it can move. And yes, I 110% think it is very beneficial, which is why we as a club did do the running table. I forget how wide our running table is, but it's at least that wide, if not a little bit wider. But they feel more comfortable because they have more room. They can turn, they can move, they can show themselves, they can sit up. And there's not this, truthfully, you put these rabbits on these smaller tables, it shows, and they only have this much room to run. That's not very much room outside of their feet. I mean, truthfully, when we're judging, this is our average room. So that rabbit doesn't have very much space to run. That rabbit isn't much wider or much narrower than that. Do you know what I mean? So they don't have a ton of room to move. And I truly feel like they're going to fall, and they don't feel safe. So the wider and the more sturdy, that's the other thing. If that table is shaking, that feels uneasy underneath of their feet. When you have a solid table that they know that they can get up there and move, and they're not going to fall. Think about it. When you walk across something wobbly, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall. So you kind of crouch down, right? Or if you're walking on something narrow, you're not going to move as fast because you're like, I don't want to fall. So I really, truthfully, honestly feel like it's the same characteristics, that they just need that room to move. The other thing that's really nice is L-shaped tables, because they can get to the corner and they can turn and they can keep going. And from a judging standpoint, truthfully, at times L-shaped tables are very nice because you can put a rabbit here and a rabbit here and watch them move.
This one's from Ari, and how much will fur condition affect the points while judging spots?
Truthfully, fur condition, depending on how the rabbit is molting. So if we're just doing like a fine shed, I think it's 5 points overall. Let me make sure before I say that. Condition is 5 and fur is 8, sorry. But that's kind of where it gets tricky, because if you have a rabbit in a full-blown molt, or you're looking to finish off a class and they're molting, here's the thing with marked breeds, especially with spots. If their coats aren't finished, their markings look bad. Their markings look feathered, or they look barred. Their markings get off, so to speak, if their coats aren't finished. So truthfully, it just kind of depends on how bad they're molting, whether it's going to spoil the look of their markings, because that happens. So like I said, if it's like a fine shed and you're getting down to the nitty gritty, okay. But if they're in a full-blown molt, it can actually ruin the look of their markings, because it makes them not look distinct and round, and can make them look really feathered. And truthfully, I mean, like any breed, it can spoil their color too.
All right. Those are all the questions. I greatly appreciate your time this morning. And so thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Bye.